Sometimes a single decision can completely change the world, just not in the way anyone expected. And we're going to unpack exactly that, how a huge trade punishment totally backfired and, well, accidentally created a new economic superpower.
So, let's set the scene. The date is April 2nd, 2025. The place, the White House Rose Garden. President Trump is there, signing an executive order, and with a stroke of a pen, he basically fires the starting pistol on a global trade war. And he gives it this big, grand name, Liberation Day. Now, on the surface, the goal was to liberate American industry from what he called unfair competition. But really? The unspoken part was about punishment. It was a way to go after countries for doing things the U.S. didn't like. Like, for instance, India continuing to buy Russian oil.
So what was the weapon here? Tariffs. And I mean massive ones. We're talking about a 1-2 punch. First, a 25% reciprocal tariff. That's kind of like a you tax us, we tax you deal. But then, on top of that, another 25% punitive tariff, which was just a straight-up penalty. Add them together, that's a jaw-dropping 50% tax on a whole lot of Indian goods coming into the U.S.
Okay, so fast forward just 1 year from that day in the Rose Garden, the entire global economic map, it's been redrawn. India is suddenly in a stronger position than it has ever been. And the craziest part? The very policy that was designed to punish India to bring it to heel, yeah, that's what ended up making it happen.
All right, so let's dig into that. What was the plan exactly? What was this Liberation Day supposed to accomplish?
Well, President Trump reached for a pretty powerful tool. It's called the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA for short. And what it does is grant the president some serious authority to regulate trade all on his own during a national emergency. So he used it to just impose these tariffs, completely bypassing Congress.
And you got to understand, this wasn't just a single shot. It was a whole pressure campaign. So you had the Liberation Day order on April 2nd with those first tariffs. Then, fast forward to August 6th, and bam, another round of tariffs. This time, specifically targeting India for buying Russian oil. The message couldn't have been clearer. Fall in line or else.
But here's where the story takes a huge turn. India's response? It was not what Washington saw coming. At all. Instead of caving to the pressure, India did a complete 180. They pivoted and made a deal that would change the game for global trade.
And the news outlets all pointed to the same thing. This U.S. pressure campaign was the spark. It's what finally pushed two economic giants, India and the European Union, to finish a free trade agreement that, get this, had been stuck in negotiations for almost 20 years.
And then, on January 27, 2026, it was a done deal. It's official. In New Delhi, officials came out and announced what they were calling the mother of all deals. And just like that, a massive, historic economic partnership was born, all because of that pressure from the U.S. And man, what a deal it was. We're talking about the largest free trade zone in history based on population. It wiped out tariffs on more than 97% of EU tariff lines for India. It basically created this massive, seamless economic highway for everything. Goods, services, you name it.
So let's talk about the sheer scale of this thing, because the numbers are just mind-blowing. They really show you how dramatically the whole game changed overnight.
Okay, first, let's talk people. This new free trade zone, it covers a combined population of 2 billion people. That's a quarter of everyone on Earth, all connected in one single market. Just think about that for a second.
And what about the money, the economic scale? We're talking a combined market worth over $27 trillion. All of a sudden, you have this new trading bloc on the scene that has the sheer weight to go toe-to-toe with the economic power of both the U.S. and China.
So what does this actually look like on the ground? Let's just take one industry, textiles. The EU had tariffs of up to 12% on Indian textiles. Poof, they're gone. And the projections showed that Indian textile exports to the EU, which were sitting around $7 billion, could just skyrocket to $30, maybe even $40 billion, and fast. And the human side of that? That boom in just the textile industry was expected to create something like 6 to 7 million new jobs in India. So you see, this wasn't just some abstract trade deal on paper. This was a massive engine for real growth. So with this economic explosion, a totally new geopolitical reality snaps into place. India wasn't just a rising power anymore. No, it was now the world's indispensable economic swing state.
I mean, think about why this works so perfectly. The EU was desperate to become less dependent on China's economy. At the same time, India, getting hammered by these unpredictable U.S. tariffs, was desperate to become less dependent on America. President Trump's policy basically forced them together. It made their partnership an absolute necessity for both of them.
It's like you can see the dominoes fall, one after another. The U.S. tries to box India in with tariffs, but instead of folding, India turns around and builds this huge new partnership with the EU. And the result? Suddenly, everybody needs India more than India needs any single one of them. The tables had completely turned.
And just when you think the story's over, there's one final twist. Get this. On February 20th, 2026, the U.S. Supreme Court actually steps in, and they rule that the president didn't have the authority under that IEPA law to impose the Liberation Day tariffs in the first place. The whole legal basis for the entire pressure campaign, poof, gone, declared unconstitutional.
But you have to ask yourself, by then, did it even matter? Sure, the tariffs were struck down, but the damage, or the change, depending on your perspective, was done. The consequences were permanent. The world had already moved on and rewired itself. The new reality was already locked in. And that brings us to the final and maybe the most important question in all of this.
Right now, the world is kind of breaking up into different teams. You've got the America-led bloc on one side, and you've got the China-led bloc on the other. And by the way, China also proved it could handle tariffs, finding new customers and hitting a record $1.2 trillion trade surplus.
But now, there's a third pole emerging. And it's not a bloc. Not really. It's more of an independent, India-shaped center of gravity. It's a country that just refuses to pick a side, that does business with everybody, and has now become way too important for anyone to punish.
So that brings us right back to the beginning. A year after this big event called Liberation Day, the real question is, who was actually liberated? Was it American industry, like the name suggested? Or was it India, set free from the old way of doing things, free to carve out its own path on the world stage?